animation, illustration, graphic design, I illustrate kids' books. I do a lot of kids stuff, and I kind of bounce around, and that's what kind of brought me here to the library, because I can do crafts all day and hang out with kids. And I'm really excited to do this for you guys today. So, to keep everything within relatively an hour, it's really hard to put 48 states and 41 national parks into it. So, I kind of debated between how do you road trip, which you can ask me about later, because I didn't really do much of that, versus what did I see. So I'm going with what did I see, and I'm going to do as much as I possibly can. And some skates will be skipped, and some parks will be skipped, but I did go to pretty much all of them. So you can see all of them back there asking about ones I missed afterwards. All right. Cool. So, yeah, in 2016, I was living in New York. I lived there for 9 years. I was about to hit the 10-year mark and started to panic and figured that's not what I want to do anymore. So I bought a car, cleaned out my apartment, moved home, and my book is actually still back there. I read the super thick USA of Lonely Planets book, cover to cover, over the course of 2 months, every day on the subway and home, and highlighted, color-coded everything. I'm a very organized person, so that book is very representative of who I am if you look at it. And it was sort of my guide. This is my car. She has since died. I ran her into the ground pretty hard, but she did amazing for my actual trip. This is Bertha. When I take this off, you'll see she's actually tattooed on my arm forever, so she's a big deal. Every morning I'd wake up and say good morning. My brother was traveling with me for a little while. He made a joke about her breaking down, and 6 hours later she did, so we never say anything bad about Bertha. That was the rule. So, the reason I bought her versus other cars is A, it's a car, it's not a camper, which was too expensive for me to start. It's not an RV, which can't go everywhere. There's enough clearance so I could get most places. And I didn't want it to look like I was actually traveling in my car, because I'm from a city, so I'm very aware of that stuff, and I didn't want it to look like I was by myself. So I made sure everything was in the trunk or in the cargo rack at all times. That way I didn't have any issues. And the number one thing, I could actually fit in the back and sleep in it if I had to, which is very comfortable. So there's a copy of this back there, so I won't go too crazy, but this is my kind of crazy route. Started up here in Philly, New Jersey, where my mom and dad are. Came all the way down, up, over, looped around. Did sort of a crazy thing here, because I picked up my brother at one point, so he was with me for a little while. Came up, back down and over. I started in January and actually ended in November. The only thing, like I was saying before, I would watch out for is the Northeast in November is freezing. So that was a huge mistake. But otherwise, everything else kind of worked out timing-wise pretty well. And I'll talk about that as I go. So, this is kind of the beginning. First off, I really like Caverns that we mentioned a lot. I think they're super, super cool. This is the first one I saw, and that was like kind of my first stop on the trip. Actual like stop, pay to do something, and it was really exciting. These are the Lorraine Caverns. There's also an organ in there, which is super cool. It's connected to mallets up to the stalactites in the ceiling. So as they play it, it makes music with the cave, which is very cool. At this one, I also did the entire Blue Ridge Parkway, start to finish. It was beautiful. I went through Skyline Drive in Shenandoah Valley National Park, which was way too cool to do anything at the time. It was January. But I did get to see it, which counts, I guess, for the beginning. I did also do Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is both in Tennessee and North Carolina, which was kind of cool. It's a huge park. And it was at this time that I realized that I actually really don't like driving on highways. So I went off highway and saw a lot of little towns, which stuck through the entire 10 months pretty much. This is one of the first little towns I saw. It's called Floyd. It's a block and a half big, literally. On Friday nights, the entire town, everybody, gets together at the country store and they have a little dance hall, and I got to do that, which was super fun. This is my first national park I actually stopped at. It's technically my third. This is Kangaroo National Park. It's actually kind of cool. It's probably my sleeper pick if I had to pick a sleeper pick of national parks. It actually has a flood season, which you can get up to 11 feet of water in it, so it's closed during that season for obvious reasons. But it has the largest hardwood oak, I don't know what to call it, collection of trees in the southeastern US, which is kind of cool. And I just thought that was really fascinating. And then while while I was there, I also stayed in a hostel in Charleston, went to the oldest oak tree, the Angel Oak Tree, and I went to Savannah, which is haunted, which I love, and I loved Savannah. The food there is amazing. Just everything about the sled I loved a lot. There's so much food, there's so many things to see. And this is the first time I actually got to do couch surfing, which is a really cool way to get around, especially for someone traveling by themselves. So it's not just staying with your friends, it's actually an app. So you sign up for it and you can see like honest reviews of people's homes, who wants to take in travelers, and you get some really, really cool experiences that way. And overall, I ended up staying with 46 different families and people. All right. I debated going through Florida. I've been there a lot. I get bitten by everything, but I decided it was worth it. And my first stop was at Blue Springs State Park. It's sort of a must-see if you ever go through Florida. The manatees live there all year. The water's like the perfect temperature for them, so that's pretty awesome. I did go through Miami. This is one of my favorite trees. This is the rainbow tree. The strips of bark actually peel off, and there's so much oil and resin in it that as the oxygen in the air hits it, it changes colors over time, making it a rainbow tree, which I thought was pretty awesome. The benefit of traveling by yourself is actually that right there. When I was in Everglades National Park, I signed up for a tour which was totally full, and one person couldn't make it, and as the one person, I jumped the list, and I got to go. So I got to commute through mangroves and thankfully not see any alligators while I was doing it. And it was awesome. It was a really good time. That was like my first taste at, oh, it's okay to be by myself. This is working out. That's it. Not really. Like, you know. Cool. So, oh yes, this is my quick shout out to Alabama. There wasn't a lot of parks and things to do there, but there is a lot of history, which I find very fascinating and super interesting. And I also couch surfed with my friend named Robert, who had a pig named Oliver, which was the best. And Selma is not only just historical and also incredibly important, but the best barbecue I've ever had in the U.S. is in Selma. It's a very tiny little place, and when I told them how far I had driven to get there, they gave me all the barbecue, and I was very happy. It's great. All right. Oh yeah, we're in New Orleans. So along the way, part of my thing I wanted to do while I was road tripping was kind of like have points where I was meeting people. So I kind of kept myself on track, but still gave myself enough time to see everything I wanted to see. One of them was New Orleans. We actually met up in Mardi Gras with me, my friend Robert, who I met couch surfing, actually came with me for that because he was in Mobile, so he was right next door. So we did Mardi Gras in Mobile, and then he came with me to New Orleans, and I met two of my girlfriends there that flew in to meet me there, and that's beginning of February, I think. I'm pretty sure. So that gave me kind of enough time, might be later in the month actually, but it kind of gave me enough time to get through some of that beginning, dip into Florida, and come back up. So New Orleans itself is, I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's amazing. The food there is great, and as someone who likes haunted things, loved the cemeteries. I did every single cemetery tour. They're very cool. One of them was Madame Laveau's tomb, which has X's all over it because she's the voodoo queen. And it's actually illegal to now put X's on it because you can't disrupt the stone face. But people leave things there so that you're not cursed. And all I had was a seashell for my car that my mom had given me to decorate from our beach house. So I picked up one of those and I put it there so I wouldn't be cursed forever. It seemed like a good idea at the time. We ate a ton of po' boys. We had pounds and pounds of beads. This is about a quarter of the beads that I actually got. I saved a couple and I got a few coins from the floats, but you actually recycle them and they reuse them every year, which is kind of cool. And way too many po' boys, but it was a really good time. So the benefit of doing couch surfing is that you get to meet people that do some really interesting things that I would never normally do. This is Dax. I actually stayed with him in Chattanooga. Within about half an hour of meeting him, he told me he was going to go caving, and I didn't know what that meant, and I said, great, that sounds good. It's actually a tiny little hole, as you can see, And you climb in and you have these lights on and you have to let your eyes adjust to the darkness and you climb through rooms of caves and then come back out. I am afraid of the dark, deathly afraid of the dark. And I also don't really like small spaces. So it took me a little while to get used to it, but once I did, it was pretty awesome. There were tiny tunnels where you had to like put your arms up and wiggle your way through. It was amazing. And the 4th room in actually has a little jar with fire paper in it. You can write your name and date, so my name is forever in that jar, which is really cool. This is also another stop that I made sure I saw someone at so I could keep myself on track. That's my mom. She came to meet me in Memphis and do all the music stuff with me. We did go to Graceland, which if this is the gates for it, if you ever go, it seems kind of cheesy, but it is amazing. It is worth every penny to go to Graceland. It's a great time. Similarly, this is Sun Studios, where Elvis started, and we also did a tour through there. This is actually the studio in there, and that's where Johnny Cash sang I Walk the Line, so we took a picture there with it. But the best part about Memphis for me, other than the food, I love the food everywhere, is Stax. This is one of the greatest places on earth, hands down. It's where Soul was born. It's where the Bar-Kays started. They're my favorite funk group. And I didn't realize it until we first started the tour. I thought it sounded familiar, and then I realized where we were, and it was like all over from there. It was amazing. They actually used to be a theater, so the floor slopes down, and that's why they started using it to get the extra sound. All right, there we go. This is another really cool stop of couch surfing people. I stayed with this guy named Keith and his best friend Buddy in the Ozark National Forest, which is one of my favorite national forests. And because of the Blanchard Spring Caverns, they actually work here giving tours. So on one of the off times, I got to take a private tour with them and go through the caverns and really see it. That's how I got this amusing photo, because I could set up my camera for a few minutes and just let it do its thing. So I loved every minute of this. It was huge, so different than the cavern before. It's like double the size of this room. There was actually a little crystal that I walked by and I was like, oh, it's cool. And Buddy took it and put it in my pocket, so it's over there. You can see it at the end. You're not really supposed to take it. So it's not even in my blog. I wasn't allowed to talk about it, but I love it. I've saved it. Fun fact, which I learned actually at the first caverns, were stalactites are the ones that are up in the ceiling. They hang tight to the ceiling, and stalagmites are on the floor right here. They try with all their might to reach the ceiling. Similarly, when I was in Arkansas, or I guess in Little Rock specifically, through another couch surfing person, I met their friend named Luke, and Luke worked up the zoo, and I got to go behind the scenes and meet all the bears and meet all the cats. He worked with the cats, which was really cool. And at the end of the day, Luke said, I'm going to go home and forage, and I said, what does that mean? So basically, foraging is when you take a hot piece of metal, beat the crap out of it until you make it into a shape that you like. And that's how he described it to me, so I said, that sounds great. So then I got to go over and make what basically is like a letter opener, because it's not actually sharp. And I do have a hook also that hangs on my hats in my house that he made for me. And we also made my brother a bottle opener while I was there, which was super cool. All right, now we're in Texas. Texas is huge. There's no doubt about it. I actually really liked going through Texas. Now it kind of depends where I visit if I want to go or not, but at the time when we were driving through, the reason I liked it so much is because the entire state is all different. Everything's different. Florida is a lot of palm trees and a lot of bugs, and I liked it, but it was very the same all the way through, versus Texas, as you can see, there's a whole vast different things happening through it. Everything from the stockyards at Fort Worth, which I highly recommend. Austin is where my brother met me for about a week. When you get out into hill country, you have flowers everywhere. They're beautiful. Best wildflowers I've ever seen. There's also a really amazing state park called Enchanted State Park that I hiked there. This is the cowboy capital of the world, Bandera, Texas. It's a very, very small town. I really liked the idea of that, so I went there and I rode some horses. We also visited my cousin when we were there. This is at his ranch. We found an egg that's actually a rhea egg. It's about this big. It has about a dozen eggs inside of it. Like when you crack it, it's like the amount of like a dozen yolks essentially. And there were 8 of us, so I had a very big breakfast that day and it was delicious.
What kind of egg is it?
Rhea, R-H-E-A. It's kind of like an emu, kind of. But I don't know if it's a little bigger, a little smaller, but, you know, huge. And on the way down into Texas from Oklahoma, there's a state park called Dinosaur Valley State Park. And when you cross one of the rushing lakes kind of to get through, you actually can find dinosaur tracks, which was awesome to find. And then I did a weird thing where I dipped down, realized I missed Houston, really wanted to go to NASA because I think outer space is amazing, and just bit the bullet and went all the way over and got to see NASA. After NASA, I kind of decided I was done with cities and just said, all right, it's fine. I texted some couch surfers along the way because at this point I'm all the way at this side of Texas, so they have to get to all the way to this side of Texas to Big Bend National Park, which is on the complete opposite end. And I texted some couch surfers along the way, hey, can I crash? They all said yeah, but I decided I wasn't tired, so I just kept driving. And I actually found some really great hosts right outside Big Bend National Park in Terlingua, which is technically a ghost town, but people live there. Cece and Ron, they actually had a camper, and when I got there, I had asked them for 3 days, and they gave me almost a whole week. They told me I need more time, and they were right. It's my favorite national park. Big Bend is the largest, one of the largest national parks in the national park system. It's also one of the least visited. It's also the darkest point in the U.S. There's no light pollution for 200 miles, so you can see what I imagine in the Milky Way. I have no idea, but it was beautiful. I've never seen stars like that before. There's also 3 ecosystems within it. There's the river, the mountains, and the desert. It's the only national park that has an entire mountain range within it, and it's larger than Rhode Island. So it's a very big park, and it's super cool. It's just so different everywhere you go. This and this are from the same area, and that was my favorite part of the hike for sure. At one point, I did stop in one of the national park, I'm trying to think of the name, like where you go and check in.
Visitor center?
Thank you, the visitor center, because there's a few of them. And I went to one of them and there was a postcard of this. And I said, where can I find this? And they showed me on a map exactly where I turn off. And it was actually a 6-mile drive out and back. This is called Tanaha. That's this little chunk of water right here. It's so important because it actually never, no matter how hot it gets there, and it gets very hot there, it actually never drains, it never goes away, so it's great for the animals to have it there. There's a piece of the rocks over there as well. But when you walk up to it, you kind of just walk into this little canyon, and it's just levels and levels of stairs, as you can see everywhere. And my mind is completely blown. I loved it so much. I spent a lot of time there. Unfortunately, on the way out, Bertha's clearance was not quite high enough, and I did kind of knock my muffler off a little bit, and it sounded like there was a motorcycle behind me all of a sudden, which would not have been possible on that road. So when I got off, I did have to stay a couple extra days to fix that, but it was totally worth it, so it's fine. So one of the things I do like to do, I like to collect stuff. One of the things, this is my jacket from the trip. When I left, there was nothing on it. I collect patches. As you can see, I also collect a lot of other stuff. I like the penny press. They're 51 cents. It's the easiest souvenir you can get. I also really love postcards. So that's why I was hunting for postcards and then found that place, which seems to be working out. It's happened a few times that I've done that. So then I went to Guadalupe Mountains National Park right there. That's actually called the top of Texas. It's the highest point that you can get in Texas. That's me with my selfie up there. Because I had no one to take the pictures for me, so there's a lot of me jumping, all excited.
What is that thing next to you? It looks like a
It is the monument for a flight or a specific plane ride that flew through there, and I can't remember what it is. I have it written down, but it's a monument for something up there. And then right next to it is, they sort of have like a little box there that says the name of the peak, like where you are. Kind of like we have like the big hotel 14ers, the same idea. This is a weird thing on the side of the road in Texas that people kept telling me I needed to see, and it was a big deal. I don't know. It was, it made me laugh, so I took a picture. It's called Marfa Prada. It's basically a play off a Prada store, but it's not real. It's literally in the middle of nowhere on the road. But there it is. It's a thing. And this is also Guadalupe Mountains National Park. So it's very, very different from up there when you actually get down into the canyon. Carlsbad Caverns National Park, vastly different than every other one. As you can see, it goes down into the ground, not just above. This is also one of the parks where there's hundreds of bats that fly out at night, depending on the time of year. I was not there during that time. I did see bats in Austin, so I was good on the bats at that point. But that is a really cool thing that you can't see while you're there. So this is my first time in New Mexico. I dubbed it as a very weird state because I had not experienced true altitude change yet. Obviously, we live in Colorado, so I know how it works now. But this is the beginning of New Mexico, and I probably an hour earlier had not been in snow. So that I found very strange. I saw a lot of things when I was there, most notably White Sands National Park. You can actually see it from outer space, which I really loved. And the coolest part about it was actually some sand over there too. Unlike regular sand, which is quartz, this is actually gypsum sand, so it does not get hot. So no matter how long you stand on it, you could be barefoot and stand there for days and your feet would never get hot. It's perpetually cold, which is super cool. I met two girls there who then hosted me later in Albuquerque, which was kind of cool. And we got some sleds, and I was very excited and dove, ready to go, and flew right off the sled and into the very, very hard sand, which was not as comfortable as regular sand. There's also a really great down to the side of Las Cruces, almost parallel, almost aligned with this one. Down at the bottom west corner of New Mexico, there's a really great Gila cliff dwellings, and next to it is also a hot springs and a campsite that I found while I was there and ended up staying. I met some really great people that were hiking the CET because it actually cuts right through there. So that was kind of cool. There's petroglyphs. There's Valley of Fire, which is old lava, basically, that has molded into that. City of Rocks is also a really great kind of state park in there. It just looks like giant round people, basically. So this was another one of my big stops. This is my birthday stop. My whole family came to see me in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Stepdad, stepmom, dad, mom, and my brother. Everybody came. My dad dropped the cake. It was a great time. But we got to do, I took my mom, my stepdad, and my brother to do some things, and then I took my stepmom, my dad, and my brother to do some other things. So we did go on a hot air balloon ride in Albuquerque. Bandelier National Monument, if you can ever get there, is super, super cool. It's very different than most cliff dwellings. These are actually made just into the naturally formed holes in the rocks. So they kind of just work with what they have versus building new stuff. And 10 Rocks is another great one to get to if you can hike it. So this is the first time that I used a kind of like a Help X thing, I think it was called. So when I stayed in Taos, this is the farm I stayed on. I did some seed planting and helped with some crops and stuff for the guy that, I forget his name, but he did organic foods and like went to the local farmer's market every week. So this was like his business. So I exchanged using his camper to sleep for a couple days to help him in the morning with some of his stuff, with like his farming stuff, which was kind of cool. I've never done that before. And while I was there, there's also the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge in New Mexico, which is super cool. But the coolest part about it is you can actually go down into it, which I actually drove down here. You can hike out here. There's a couple hot springs tucked in there. It was pretty cool. And then when I was done there, you're just south of Colorado. So then I jumped into Colorado, which was awesome. And now I live here, so it was a great time, obviously, being in Colorado. But my first taste of it was the Great Sand Dunes National Park. I had never seen anything where it's just two completely different things, just in the same picture that you're looking at. So I loved that it was sandy mountains all in the same place. I made a friend who took me sandboarding, which was extremely hard to do, much harder than I thought it would be. It was exhausting, and unfortunately, unlike white sands, this is quartz sand, so it was very hot. We couldn't stay out there very long to stand out there. So I imagine most of you have been to Garden of the Gods. It's a pretty common one. But if you've never been to Colorado National Monument, you can even just drive through it. I think it speaks for itself. It's epically gorgeous. I loved going to see that. So this is actually in May. I didn't realize it snowed like that in Colorado in May, so this is how I went up to Rocky Mountain National Park. So that was exciting. So I didn't see a whole lot of it. A lot of it was closed because of it, but I did see that, and it was beautiful. There's just some of the trees from it. I did also see Black Canyon at the Gunnison National Park. I will say the north side I like a little bit better. There's a little less people. Still just as awesome to look at. That's me up there looking down. This is the painted wall down there. It's actually the narrowest canyon, I believe, and the visitor center, the width of it, is the width of down at the bottom. If you ever go visit. Out of my whole trip, these are some of my favorite drives that I've done, which happen to actually be in Colorado. This is Independence Pass in May, the exact same place in September. This was the first day the pass opened, actually. I kind of coincidentally happened to be there at the time. If you should ever go, because it's near here, so I'm going to tell you, just on the other side, closer to Aspen, there are actually ice caves that melt about a week after they open the pass. And I actually got to go, because like I said, I was there the day it opened. So I actually got to go find them and slide down into them and check them out. $1 Million Highway down to Durango. And the Flare Pass is also another one I really love. So this is Mesa Verde National Park. This is another one with cliff dwellings. It's a little bit different, obviously, because it's so humongous. It's kind of like a whole city down there. But for $5, you can take a tour. They happen all day. I just kind of showed up and picked one at a certain time. And everything from corn and rocks and everything is built into these from when they made them. You actually get to go up the tiny stairs and climb through places and actually get to see the way that people moved around. All right, so now we're in Arizona. So at this point, I had picked up my brother at the Grand Canyon. He had already taken a trip with some friends there, and the deal was to pick him up, and he was going to spend a few weeks with me. He ended up spending 3 months with me, which I was not complaining about. He's my best friend, it was fine. But we did have to have some lessons for how to not eat 8 meals a day and save our money and how to just condense that. And I also taught him the ways of couch surfing, which he ended up really loving too. So we stopped in Flagstaff. We also stopped in Jerome, which was, I put in here because it was kind of one of those like Floyd things, or it was like a random town we found, but it's actually very, very slowly sliding off the mountain because it's like on the side. And I thought that was really interesting. We also found a place called Thatcher, Arizona. My brother's name is Thatcher, so when we saw that on the map, we took a detour, and he's never lived it down since. Like, it's his favorite thing that we did. He could stand in front of a sign, and he was there. So that was a big deal. Petrified Forest National Park is super cool. How do I explain it? So it's basically fossilized wood or trees that then become rock. And all of these colors are in there from just being there for like just millions of years, whatever. And we definitely took a piece. It was awesome. They're over there. Again, don't do that. They're this big. There's so many. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. This is pretty much what it was. And then there was one point where there was just a whole field of just colorful stones everywhere that you could walk through. So this is when we went through pretty much the rest of Arizona. We did go to Saguaro National Park. Fun fact, the trees that look like this, the cactuses, the ones you always see, this is the only place they're native to. If you see them anywhere else, they actually were put there. They don't actually just naturally grow there. We also went to,
Unplug it and plug it back in.
I'll just go over here. Okay. We also went to Joshua Tree National Park, which is very hot, but it's always hot there, so it almost doesn't matter what time you go. It was great to see regardless. There were stones stuck in places. We got to climb up the walls. It was a ton of fun. I do recommend a ton of water if you ever go to this area. Like, and start in the morning and be done by like 9 or 10 in the morning. Honestly, it's so hot. At this point, it was 112 degrees one day. And we actually literally almost murdered each other. It was too hot. It was awful. Thatcher's beard, I'm pretty sure, died after that. Like, he couldn't handle it. There is this weird place called Coachella Valley Preserve that's in that general like Palm Springs desert area. And the hike to it, That's what that is. It's unbearable. When you get in there, it's like a little oasis. It's like 20 degrees cooler. I don't really know. There's like water in there. I'm not really sure how it's there, but it was a really nice break from our day. Another great break is the Palm Springs aerial tram. It's a little pricey, but it's totally worth it. It's one of 3 aerial trams like that in the world. So you actually stand in one place and it spins around you, so you never have to move to see everything. And it makes 2 full 360-degree rotations right your way up, which is very cool. And when you get to the top, there's actually a state park, and it's about 30 degrees cooler up there, which was also really nice.
What time of year were you there?
I was there in, I would say June. Yeah. So we were there right before it was gonna get really hot, but everyone kept saying there's a heat wave, and so yeah. So for anyone venturing to the Grand Canyon ever, this is a huge tip that we got from a ranger. This is Shoshone Point at the Grand Canyon. It's actually on the south side where all the people are, so you don't even have to go to the north side to get to it. When we got there were so many people, I didn't want to be with them. I was kind of over people at this point. I needed a little break, and then of course they were at the Grand Canyon. So we went inside and asked the ranger if there was anywhere to go that we wouldn't fall off the edge with all the people, basically. And he said no very loudly and quietly pointed to a spot on the map so that no one else would see it. And this is it. It's about, let's say, 15 minutes down the road from the main visitor center when you get there. There's a very quick, maybe mile-long hike, not even, to get out to it, and this is what you see. You can just sit there and be by yourself and enjoy it. And it's pretty much the same view as the other one without all the people. So that was like a hidden gem we found. It's sort of like a weird loop that I did here, so sorry if it feels like I'm backtracking. On the map, you can kind of see that weird thing happening through Colorado. That's what this loop is. So we went to Horseshoe Bend in Arizona, which is, as you can see, super, super cool. It literally looks like a horseshoe. But while you're there also, it's also in Page, Arizona. And that's actually where Antelope Canyon is. You do have to make reservations for this. Another thing about Arizona, they don't have daylight savings time there. And Page in particular, your phone will not tell you what time it is. Thatcher's phone was 1 hour off from mine at all times. So we never knew what time it was the entire time we were there. So we made a reservation for like 1. And we showed up about an hour and a half early because we didn't know what time it was and we didn't want to miss it. So we just hung out and hovered around the area until our reservation happened. They drive you out to this canyon. You walk through. These are actually the colors. It's not edited. Everything's purple and orange and the sun comes through. If you go at noon, there's a point where the sun actually comes through at a perfect beam straight down. So we were a little bit later than that, but it's okay. So I did wait to go to Utah to be with Thatcher because he really wanted to see all the parks there. This is Zion and Bryce. Bryce I really loved. These are all canoes down there, and it's called an amphitheater because you actually look down into Bryce. You can actually go through and walk through them, and they're humongous. There is a free BLM land camping site, National Forest area, just outside the park sign for Bryce. And if you turn off there, there's campsites everywhere, so we parked right there and basically walked across and saw sunrise in Bryce Canyon, which was very cool. So this is Zion up here and down here. This is the top of the Angel's Landing when I made it, even though I'm afraid of heights. This is the Narrows, and the one over there is also the Narrows. I recommend if you ever go to the Narrows, if you're somebody that likes to do a big hike, this is one of those things where we did not plan. We basically did plan for a lot of stuff, but this is one of those ones where I regret not planning because you could have started at the top, come down, camped at some point, and done the entire Narrows top to bottom, but you have to have a permit to do it, and we were too far out or too close to be able to sign up for one. But you can start at the bottom, which we did. If you go more than 2 miles in, you'll lose all people, and it's way more worth it. It starts to get deeper too. At one point, we actually had to fully swim to another section of the Narrows, which was kind of cool. But we had gear for it, so we put everything in my dry bag. And this is actually the top of Angel's Landing. So if you have a fear of heights, just hang on tight and you'll get to the top. So this is the rest of Utah. We have Arches National Park up at the top. Hopefully you recognize that arch, it's a pretty big one. Canyonlands, and then Corona Arch is another really cool place to see. It's not even in the park, you can just kind of hike out to it, which I've actually done quite a few times since I lived here. This is kind of my sleeper state park. It's very weird, I love this park. It's called Gotham Valley State Park. When you're going from Capitol Reef up to these parks, it's kind of in between. And it just looks like these weird alien blobs everywhere. You can kind of walk down among them. This day was super windy, so it actually looks like he's like 30 pounds heavier than he is. This is the wind like blowing on him. But yeah, it was very weird, but it was a really cool place. And the picture all the way on the right is looking up at Corona Arch from the bottom. So Cabria National Monument, I wanted to give it its own page because I really loved it. Actually, I like San Diego as a city, it's super cool. But this I really enjoyed. It was kind of different, obviously, from most of San Diego because it is a city, or a small one anyway, smaller. But at one point, you can actually walk out to here along the side and you can see planes coming out of the clouds because right across from it is the airport, which I thought was super cool. And you have all these like seat cliffs along the side. You can actually head down into it. That's where I found that little crab guy. All of these are this colorful vegetation up there. I have no idea what it is, but it covers mostly all of this. It makes it look kind of like rainbow colored, which I really loved. Okay, this is one of those things that I splurged for. Doctor was still with me for this. If you're ever over in California, I highly recommend this stop. This is Channel Islands National Park. I believe it's just outside Santa Cruz. That's what it says. So you do have to make a reservation. We only made it a day in advance, so it doesn't have to be a huge planning thing. But what you can do when you get there, they take you on a boat. They have you rent a kayak, because you can see all the ones out here. You can actually kayak through sea caves, which are super cool.